This happened 10 years ago now. Me and my two friends, who we will call Mark and Jesse, are from Toronto, and we decided to go on vacation to Mexico to get out of the cold. We chose a destination near Playa del Carmen because the weather was warm and the ocean was gorgeous. Our first night there, we strolled along the boardwalk and ducked into a few local bars. In between bars, we'd have people come up to us and put their thumb and forefinger together and raise it to their lips as if to ask if we wanted something to smoke. At first we would nod politely, but after a while we just ignored them altogether. The next day we sat on the beach and discussed the night and laughed about how we must have stuck out like such obvious new arrivals with our pale complexions and confused looks on our faces. Later that evening we were again down at one of the local cantinas and started seriously discussing that it wouldn't be terrible to have some pot for the rest of our trip. We were not totally naive and figured we'd probably get ripped off on the quantity and that the quality might not be so great either. But after further deliberation, we decided against it. That is, until we ran into a guy on the boardwalk who seemed really friendly and spoke perfect English. We were at ease and probed him with questions about the quality, which he assured us would be top shelf. After about 15 minutes of jawboning with this guy, we decided, yeah, why not? He told us to follow him to where he kept the stash, which turned out to be quite a distance away. After walking over 35 minutes into a worsening neighborhood, we started second-guessing our decision as we became a little concerned. But then suddenly he stopped, pointed at a dilapidated building, and said that he would be right back. At this point, we felt pretty uneasy, and were about to start heading back when he came out and gave us a wave. He pulled out a plastic baggie filled with green buds, and it looked and smelled incredible. We were absolutely shocked by how good the quality was, and even though the price was high for the amount, we gladly paid, took the bag, said our thank yous and goodbyes, and headed back to our hotel, happy the ordeal was over. About 1 block into our journey, we noticed that there were 3 guys that seemed to be following us. Just to be sure, we started walking a little faster and noticed they picked up the pace as well. After a short discussion, we all looked at each other and started running as fast as we could back to our place. We looked back, and sure enough, those same 3 guys were in a full sprint coming after us. Rather than continue straight, we decided to start making random turns down streets in an attempt to lose them. It was very late at night and there was nobody else on the street, so our presence was very hard to make inconspicuous. So rather than continuing to run, we agreed to find a place to hide and hope that these 3 men would just give up searching for us. The area was commercial with rundown structures and garages that appeared to be vacant, so we slipped into one that looked like a tool shed. The door was locked, but it had a broken window in the back where we jumped in. There was nothing inside except empty boxes and junk. We sat in the dark behind a stack of boxes and tried to control our breathing so not to make any noise. It was less than 15 seconds later that we heard the sound of the 3 men pass us by and then suddenly stop. They were yelling at each other in Spanish, but then their voices started to fade. We stayed put, afraid of giving our position away until the coast was clear. 15 minutes later, we heard the voices come back our way. They were looking for us in the dumpsters and structures up and down the street. At one point, they jiggled the door to the shed, but finding it locked, they continued moving down the street, now going back the way they originally came. We were absolutely terrified and remained in our position without talking and hardly breathing for hours. Eventually, the sun came up and the coast seemed to be clear, so we got the hell out of there and ran to our hotel. We decided to pack our bags and drove to Cancun, where we spent the rest of our vacation. Trying to make sense of this situation, we concluded that the scam was to get us to agree to buy drugs by putting us at ease using the first guy, who was by himself and spoke perfect English. Then for him to take us to an isolated part of the city where a group of men could rob us of those same drugs and the rest of our money on our way back home. When I think about it, it's a perfect scam. You can't exactly go to the police and tell them that you've been robbed of the illegal drugs you purchased. Then again, 3 dead tourists wouldn't be able to identify their attackers, so who knows what would have really happened had they caught up to us. My name is Robert, and my fiancée Roxana and I decided to go island hopping in Hawaii for our honeymoon. After making the long trip from New York, we checked into a seriously insane suite at a fancy hotel in Waikiki. The hotel lobby was epic, and the aesthetics of the place were to die for. Once we got out of the elevator and headed towards our room, we did notice some rodent bait stations placed in obscure areas, such as near the vending machine room and in parts of the hallway, which seemed a little out of the ordinary for such a high-end hotel, but we didn't make too much of it. Our opinion of the hotel started to change when we got to our room. As soon as we opened the door, we both detected an unpleasant odor. I immediately opened the glass door to the balcony and called the front desk to speak to the manager. I explained to him that the room smelled bad and that we would like another suite. The manager apologized up and down, but told me they were all booked up due to it being high season. He assured me that the problem was probably something minor and that he would send maintenance up to check it out. While I was on the phone, Roxana did a search of the room to try to locate the origin of the odor, but came up empty. She checked everywhere, including the air vents, and even flushed the toilets and ran the water in the sink, tub, and shower. We decided not to stress over it any longer and changed into our bathing suits to hit the beautiful beach that sat in front of our hotel. We ordered drinks, swam in the ocean, had lunch, and eventually passed out for a few hours on the sand. By the time we woke up, the sun was starting to set and we forgot all about the issue with the room. But when we got back into the suite, we were again confronted with the same nasty smell, despite the sliding glass doors being kept wide open. The manager promised to try and find us another suite at a comparable hotel and proceeded to call every hotel in the area but came up empty. He explained that all the nice rooms were sold out, but that he promised to keep trying and offered to clean the room again. It was now starting to get late, and we decided to go have a nice dinner and check out some of the other hotels along the beach, occasionally checking with the front desk on room availability. Except for a few small, non-view rooms, we found nothing. When we returned to the hotel, we were greeted by the manager, who informed us that they replaced all our sheets, gave us all new towels, and vacuumed the entire suite. They even bleached the entire bathroom. He assured us that the room was spotless and we should not expect there to be any further issues. We were encouraged by this and went up the elevator to our room to get ready for bed. We opened the door and noticed that they kept all the windows and balcony doors open in an attempt to further air out the room. Not long after we closed the sliding glass door to the balcony was it that we noticed the same bad smell. At this point, I was tired, super irritable, and just needed to get some sleep. Admittedly, I lost my cool and tore the room apart, looking for the source of the offensive odor. Once I removed the mattress from the bed, the smell got a little stronger. It was then that I discovered that it was coming from somewhere under the bed. I looked underneath and didn't see anything at all, but came to the conclusion that it might be coming from the box spring. The box spring only had a very thin sheer covering on it, and in my current state of agitation, I just ripped it off. Lo and behold, there inside the box spring was a family of dead rats. They must have chewed through the thin fabric somewhere and made the box spring their home and died after taking some of the bait from those stations in the hallway. It's just a theory anyway. I immediately called the manager to let him know what we found, while Roxana packed our bags. One of those lousy non-view rooms sounded great right about now. Once the maintenance man showed up, he called the manager, who also came to see for himself. At that point, he again apologized and offered us a new room that miraculously became available. If I wasn't pissed off already, I was now. We got a full refund, checked into a crappy room at a nice hotel down the street, and enjoyed the rest of our honeymoon, which turned out to be amazing. Although the incident was upsetting at the time, I think back at what a lunatic I must have looked like ripping that room apart and just laugh. This is a story that I wrote for myself as a way to confront the demons that I've been dealing with since this happened. To be honest, I'm not sure why I'm submitting it to your channel, but I've been seeing a therapist about this for years, and I guess telling my story is just another way of me trying to find a way to heal. This happened on August 12th, 2001, when I was only 14 years old. My father, mother, older sister, and I were on vacation in Mexico and rented a Jeep to drive up the coast north of Puerto Vallarta, where we had booked a resort on the beach. The weather was super hot and humid, but I was having a great time surfing and spending a lot of time in the water. I had heard of another beach with a great surf break 30 minutes further north, and I asked my parents if we could head up there for the day, but they had lunch plans with other friends and were not able to take me. So I begged my sister to take me because she was old enough to drive, but she was adamant that she did not want us to drive alone through an area which she was unfamiliar. The spot was literally a straight shot up the highway, and after relentlessly pressing her, she finally agreed. We found the spot without a hitch, and the beach was beautiful and a lot less crowded than the beach at our resort. My sister was also having a great time, and I could see that she was happy we made the trip. We started to head back down around sunset, and almost immediately we got behind a car with a trailer towing a boat going at a snail's pace. We were still at a part of the highway where there was only one lane in each direction, so we had no choice but to follow behind, moving at a painfully slow clip. After a while, my sister started getting annoyed and was looking for a good spot to pass the trailer. Suddenly, she stepped on the gas, swerved into the left lane, and accelerated. But almost immediately, we noticed an oncoming car that initially was hidden by a dip in the road. My sister stepped on the brakes and swerved back behind the trailer, but lost control of the Jeep. The next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital and in a lot of pain and totally confused as to where I was and why. My parents were there in the room when I came to, but their faces were gray and their eyes red and swollen with tears. I asked about my sister, but they looked at each other and just broke down. Eventually, they found the strength and filled in the gap in my memory. The Jeep had rolled several times, and my sister was flung from the vehicle and died before emergency services had arrived. The seatbelt had saved me, but my sister apparently was not wearing hers. I vaguely remember her complaining about how the belt was rubbing her sunburn. I have been living with the guilt of this every day because I pressured her to take me. It's my fault that she's gone, and I won't ever forgive myself. Part of me understands that the accident wasn't my fault, but that does very little to relieve me of my guilt and heartache. My parents have done everything possible for me, but they're broken themselves. Sometimes I look at them and think, even they blame me. I believe that one day I will see my sister again, and I'll be able to apologize, and I know that she'll forgive me. Until that day, I'll keep searching for a way to deal with this. Remember to love your friends and family like it's their last day on earth, because it just might be.